All right. Welcome to Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday, right? Matt, I'm losing track of my days.
It is
Welcome.
Thursday.
It is Thursday. It is another MSP initiative. So we're kicking off here with good friend and buddy in the IT circles again, Matt Solomon, who started with ID Agent and now with Kaseya. I guess both. They're both the same company now. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on here today.
Right on, right on. I know you did an event with Magic Johnson earlier in the week. How'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, it went fantastic. It was called MVP Growth Fest. We're just trying to think of ways to do things outside the box. Obviously, a lot of virtual events, and I think everybody's getting a little tired of them, quite frankly. And was really just trying to put together an event that wasn't product pitches and was really based around thought leadership. And we had some amazing panels of thought leaders, plus obviously the highlight being the keynote speaker, which was with Magic Johnson, who also happened to be a childhood hero of mine. And he has an amazing story of perseverance early on in his life. And then, way beyond basketball, he's extremely successful, businessman that a lot of people, I think they know some of the story, but they don't really know, how much he's actually done on the business side of things.
Yeah, I agree. The guy's really gone pretty far. What was kind of left field here? What was your I'm sure this is not recorded so somebody can go watch it. So
Right.
Matt Solomon, what was your biggest takeaway from that whole thing?
Biggest takeaway. So there's this quote, and I'm going to read it because I have it written down, which is he said, if you don't dream it, you can't become it. And it was really, that hit me because the idea is I open up the interview and we do have a recording. So if you didn't attend it, you can actually, for a couple, we have rights for about 3 months. So if the idea though, came to me and because he was a childhood hero of mine, and I said, digging into my crates of storage, and I have very few things from my childhood, but I happen to have like all this Magic Johnson memorabilia still. And I found a journal that I had where I basically wrote like, I want to be Magic Johnson when I grow up or something like to that extent. So that resonated with me because it was this idea of like, man, if you don't dream it, you can't, it doesn't come to fruition. You have to put it out there in the world. And, he had a lot of great nuggets. He really talked about getting to, knowing your customer. I mean, some of it wasn't groundbreaking, but it's like, it's so important to just hear that stuff. And he would give like, he wouldn't just say it, he would go into these unbelievable stories. And honestly, I'm telling you, whether you're an MSP owner or it doesn't matter, actually, if you're a human being, you will love the interview. I have people telling me that, hey, I'm making my kids watch this, things like that, because it's just such a relatable thing. And he's a great storyteller.
Well, I mean, if you can watch it, sounds like I'm about to go watch it. Where do I go?
I will send you. I have to get the exact link. I don't. Let me find it, the exact link. But I will definitely send it to you so you can actually watch it too.
Oh yeah, I mean you're pumping it up. Now I got to see the
Yeah. No.
bits.
Oh no, trust me, you gotta watch it. So,
All right.
um,
Okay. So you're based out of Maryland, right?
so ID Agent is based out of Maryland. I live in Washington D.C., which is where we originally started, and I
Hmm.
had a 6-minute bike ride to work, and now we're in an area called Bowie, Maryland. Kevin Lancaster, who I know you know, the CEO and general manager of ID Agent, lives up near Annapolis, and he got tired of the commute, and now I've got a 35-minute drive. Although right now I have no drive, so
This is true. So a lot of screen time for sure instead of windshield time.
yeah.
So you're kind of in the same boat as the rest of the Northeast, I guess. I mean, we're still kind of quasi half in, half out of coronavirus lockdown, I guess.
Mhm.
I mean, other than what you see on the news, I mean, it sounds like things are halfway back. I don't know if that's the case down there.
Yeah, I think DC just entered phase 2 on Monday, actually. Yeah, I don't know if that really means that much. I mean, maybe for some of the small businesses, certainly. You got a couple people going back into the offices and things like that, but not for the most part. I mean, I'm sure you're hearing this, right? It's like, I don't know if Kevin was as big of a proponent for remote work originally, but I'm sure I'm sure he's now seen this, right? Like
For sure. Yeah.
I love going into the office. And I never thought I would enjoy working from home as much as I do. I still prefer the office, but now that the whole thing is if I have my big screens set up in front of me, then I'm good. It's just that I always, when I would work from home randomly, I would only have my laptop and I would feel so less productive.
Yeah, once you lose the second monitor, right, it
Yeah, it's
gets
over.
tough to do it. Yeah, for sure. So is the ID agent slash Kaseya staff that's part of your team all remote, I assume, at this point?
Yeah, everybody's remote right now. I mean, all across Kaseya at this point. I mean, the BD staff for ID agent outside of Natasha was a remote based anyways,
Mhm.
but yeah, that was definitely, it's a big change for Kaseya, as it is for a lot of people. Yeah, we've got a full remote workforce. So
Yeah. No, it's fun times, right? So Matt, I don't think a lot of people know about your background, right? Like you kind of only came into the IT channel, if you would, like within the last couple of years, right? So why don't you give everybody a quick background on like how you started and how did you get to where you're at today?
yeah, no, I kind of just popped into the channel all of a sudden. Um, you know, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I did live in New York for 6 years. I was in Brooklyn. And when I was up there, I was doing copyright and licensing sales for the legal industry.
Hmm.
Um,
That's interesting, Sal.
it sounds interesting. It wasn't, yeah. But so, I guess I honed my sales skills there. Certainly not as fun as what we're doing now, but really worked there for 10 years. Got my MBA. They paid for half of it, so I'm very appreciative to that company. And stumbled, I mean, through a recruiter, stumbled into a company called Winvale, which is owned by Kevin. It's a government consulting and advisory services company. And maybe a year or so into it, he had this idea about the dark web. I mean, mind you, I knew nothing about the dark web when he told me about this. And, but I was pretty intrigued in the sense that I mean, he laid it out for me and I sort of saw what he was saying, but it helped that government consulting and advisory services was not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, let alone 2 years even. So it was just kind of good timing. So I was like, all right, I'll take a chance. And for that first year, or at least eight to 12 months, we were only focused on the enterprise. And it was like beating our heads against the wall to get these people to understand that compromised credentials on the dark web put their organization at risk. And the reason so at the time is Dropbox, LinkedIn, and MySpace breaches had not happened yet. And I say
Ah,
those three because those three basically
so
made
you're talking 2016, 17-ish?
that's exactly, yeah, late, yeah, I think even into 2015, maybe towards the end. And the reason I mentioned those three breaches, I mean, LinkedIn and Dropbox alone exposed every business, right? I mean, everybody got exposed in that. And then unfortunately, you start seeing just a domino effect of breaches. The biggest one being, at least for us at that time, was Office of Personnel Management. OPM got breached. And under Winvale, Kevin and his team won the contract to
Hmm.
provide identity and credit monitoring services at that time. So there was a lot of name recognition going in at the same time when he was trying to put together this thing called ID Agent. And so some dominoes started to play into it. And again, we were almost just ahead of the curve. And about 8 months into it, I went into his office and I said, Kevin, this doesn't seem like it's working, you know? And I honestly, I thought I was going to lose my job, not because I don't know, so many factors, but I really thought ultimately I was telling him I can't do this. Like it's not working, right? But I happened to say maybe we should try the MSP space because I'd heard, I knew some things about it, but I was like maybe we should look for resellers versus trying to get a Coca-Cola or somebody like that to buy into this.
Right. The
And
enterprise sales is a long play,
well,
right?
that was the problem. So we had and still have some of the biggest clients from that original like 8 months,
Hmm.
including an entire state government. But the sales cycle was too long for the price point we could get. And there's still great price points you can get for enterprise, but not for the investment that it took at that time.
Right.
And I started reaching out. He's like, "Fine, go play around with it." So I started reaching out looking at MSP events, and MSP Mentor was a publication at the online publication at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And I started speaking to whoever the contact was there. And I don't know if this was a sales ploy, but it ended up working out. So the editor, Aldrin Brown, I think was his name, caught wind of what we did. And he said, I've never heard of this. And he ends up writing an article about it. Now, I suspect they did that so that we would become a sponsor, but I don't know.
Yeah, of course they will.
Okay. But George, eight months all I did was outbound calls. The next day after that article published, I had 20 inbound leads from MSPs, and we didn't even have an MSP model, mind you. And then Robin Yost from Robin Robbins calls me,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, boot camp's about to happen. You should come out. I'm like, who is Robin Robbins? What are you talking about? And luckily at the time, Kevin's partner pushed. He's like, you should go. So I end up going to boot camp as a guest. Robin Yost takes me around. I talked to a few people. John Hill was one of the first people. Scott Beck I talked to, just to float this idea. And I called Kevin that night and I said, look, every time I sit down at breakfast or lunch, I'm sitting with 10 prospects. I was like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I was like, I think I should stay for the next 3 days. And he's like, stay. And then it just took off. Like, just it was a matter of like, after that, I don't know, just kept, there was a point where it was me and Kevin, and we had 25 partners. And I had a map on my wall where I'd pin each partner. And I said to Kevin, I was like, I can't handle this. I can't be the salesperson, the accounting person, the channel success manager of 25. This is too much. And then, I mean, God, in 2 years, we went from, no partners to 2,000 before we got acquired. It was crazy.
It was
It's
literally rocket boosters,
It
right?
was unbelievable. I mean, it's a one, and that's how I felt. I know we channel people work really hard.
They do.
I had never worked as hard. I mean, I put in 10-hour days for, on average, I would say, I guess, for 2 straight years, because I just knew, I was like, it felt like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And that's how I treat it every day. I still treat it that way because it's still, I love my job. So it makes it a lot easier. I mean, that's the cool thing about the channel. A lot of people love their job and are passionate about the channel.
100%. I mean, it's an interesting little, like, vertical we're all playing, or sandbox, if you would. I mean, so before we get into the good stuff, I mean, you're one of the people, again, that, I mean, you lived on the road. I know I saw that. Yeah, we were just talking before we came on about, we're going to see each other for the end of the year, basically.
Yeah.
Gut feeling, are you going anywhere? Is your team going anywhere? What's your expectation for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so it's very complicated and it's very layered, because you have your company's thoughts, you have the industry's thoughts, you've got your families, and your employees. So
a lot of moving parts, for
it's
sure.
a lot of moving parts. So, I mean, Kaseya has been very upfront. If they're not making anybody go to an event if they're not comfortable. And I think that's important, because there's a lot, I mean, you don't know everybody's family situation if they have somebody that's at high risk. And, we have seen, obviously, Robbins has done some small regional events in Nashville. And it's hard for me to imagine too many big events. Right now, obviously, Kaseya Connect is still on. And I know CRN's exchange is still on, but we obviously know any of that can change within a couple of weeks, especially as things are changing by the day right now. Outside of a few pocket events, it's hard for me to imagine until 2021, until getting back to a real. I mean, if you're just asking my gut feeling,
that's it. Yeah, I'm not
I think
asking
there'll be a couple.
Yeah, corporate memos or anything. Just like, what's Matt Solomon think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there'll be more regional events that go on. I mean, ASCII's still talking as if they're going on for some of the events, but maybe one or two or a couple of the big ones. But yeah, it's a guessing game at this point.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it's always good to get people's feeling, right? Because like things kind of ebb and flow, right? But it seems like everybody's still on that same track, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, I desperately want to be at events, but it's also still a very tough decision, just personally. And not to mention my wife works on COVID-19 for a public health department. So that
Oh.
also, and that's why I say it's like everybody has a layer to to their individual thought process around it. So
Yeah, I'm sure the first responders have a whole different view of the
yeah,
world
yeah,
because they're in it, right? They don't have a choice if
yep,
for whatever it's worth. But no, I
yep.
appreciate that feedback. So, coming, I kind of do this thing where we say, hey, coming out of 2019, business was really good for most people, right? Like, I don't think I heard anyone that was losing money in 2019.
Yeah.
Like, things were at least good or great or okay, but not bad. So one of the things that, like, listen, you talk to a lot of MSPs, I talk to a lot of MSPs. We've heard it in every peer group, every accountability group, every trade show, sales, marketing, prospecting. This is the kryptonite to the business, right? To
Hmm.
especially our, IT services, IT channel vertical. And I feel like people have tried a lot of different things, and some people got some traction, some people haven't. I feel like consistency and longevity are the two things that everybody never gets to find out if their investment works.
Hmm.
And that's really what it takes a lot of the times to get to a point where it's actually money's coming back in for the money that you're putting out. So what is your view? Like, hey, you've been in for now for two and a half, 3 years. Like, what did you see coming into this? What was the struggle? What did you see, from a success standpoint before, and then how can people get help now? Does that make sense?
I think so. I think I
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right though. Like everybody was hitting on all cylinders. It was like, and we had such a big year planned, like in terms of like, some of these events and stuff. God,
I
I
mean,
mean,
2019 was awesome, right? I mean,
oh God, yeah. And I had so many things planned for boot camp because ID Agent was a premier sponsor, and I was gonna have 10 minutes on main stage, night one. So many fun things planned that night. But yeah, so I mean, got it. It was a immediate shift change, right, for vendors and for MSPs. I think MSPs. First of all, I've actually been fascinated. We've done kind of our own little pop-up peer groups that we've been calling them, and we've seen a lot of them happening, online. The other Dan Tomaszewski on Everything MSP does those little.
I was going to say, before everybody gets confused, there's a
Yeah,
full session on this. So
yeah, the two. Yeah, that's
like,
true.
who is Dan Tomaszewski?
Yeah,
Google. There's a whole
yeah,
session.
yeah. So those are more public ones. But we've been doing some ones behind the scenes. Dan, ID Agent, and Kaseya's Dan Tomaszewski, and we were fascinated to hear how much success we were actually hearing on these calls, because really we were pulling these people together. I mean, was to share, or what are you hearing? What do you need help with? Let's share ideas and things like that. And this was really in the phase one start of things, and a lot of people were inundated obviously with tickets immediately, right? Getting into that remote work. Um, Again, the ones we spoke to, and I think it obviously has a lot to do with what part of the country you were at the time. They were having their businesses kind of boom on the remote part, right? On the adjustment to remote, and then security. I mean, that was probably the thing that a lot of our partners shifted to. You think about like conversations you've been having for the last 2 years about multi-factor authentication, and like,
People
well,
still don't get it for some
no,
reason.
and it's still, I mean, it's not like, for some reason, it's not the easiest thing to sell people because they just don't want to do it. But what we've seen is, and we've really preached to MSPs, is you're the expert. You've been labeled, stamped by the government as essential workers, which I think MSPs need to take full advantage of this identity, and start making their clients do these things. Like, stop asking, explain. And I mean, you've trusted me. You generally trust your doctor if they tell you to do something, even if you have to spend a little bit more money than you're comfortable with. That you
More only because I don't want to have to go back, right?
right, maybe. But we've seen a massive increase in that side of things. I mean, we've always told our partners to put all of your customers' domains in our platform so that you're aware, whether they're paying for the dark web monitoring or not. And we've
If
not,
anything, it's just a heads up that their password's online.
right, exactly. But since COVID-19, we've had more partners like upgrading than we would have ever anticipated, because they're now saying to their customers, you have to have this because we need visibility. We have no idea, where you're logging in some cases, what Internet of Things are part of your household, right? I mean, that's a whole nother, I'm not an expert on Internet of Things, but God, that's a whole nother layer to the
Lot of
remote work.
PlayStations and Xboxes out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Nest
But
thermostats.
yeah. And so, they were starting to roll those things out to all their clients. But the thing that I guess the one takeaway I heard a lot is just a shifting idea. Well, one, working on the business, right? They finally taken a step back, looked at what everybody was trying to cut some type of cost, right? That was a pretty common theme. But I also encourage them, because of course we hear from people as well, and they're going to hear from their customers, hey, we want to cut this, this, and this. And, I always tell people, one, it's very hard to ever get revenue back if you cut your costs.
So true.
And I don't think I'm not the first to say that in the channel or anything.
No, but consistency counts, right?
Right.
Everybody's on the same page there.
Yeah, but also when they make a statement like I need to cut the costs or whatever, start asking questions and then let them say the reasons, and you might find, and we've had NMSPs turn that around to the client actually spending more money, because they're real. It's instincts. It's instincts. Think about a family right now. Your first instinct is to call your cable company and cut your bill. It's the first instinct. That's a natural thing to try to cut costs. But then I also think, like, from an MSP perspective, you got to think about, even when you're thinking about cutting vendors, what does that say to your customer base if all of a sudden you're saying security awareness training is not important right now, right? And then 3 months later, you're going to tell them it's the most important thing. That's going to be that makes a tough conversation. So, for us on the security side, it's been a really good opportunity, and it's all about thought leadership and selling through education. That's always what we've preached anyways. I know I'm going like all over the place, I feel like, but
a constant stream of thought. I love it.
Yeah, but and I feel like it's easy to say it's one of the best times to sell security, but it's one of the best times to have a conversation around security. And if your customers are not doing security awareness training right now, this is the time to say, look, we need phishing simulations put in because we have to have a baseline understanding. All of the employees are remote. We have no idea what sophistication levels that this employee base has. I mean, you've got hackers constantly taking advantage of COVID-19. I mean, 80%, there was a study, like 80% of COVID-19 malicious activities shifted to COVID-19.
Yeah.
And if you're not showing them examples of those phishing emails that are going out, and they are very sophisticated, by the way, your customers are going to fall for those.
Especially the Office 365 ones. They've gotten really good.
No, really good. Yeah. And again, they're taking on people's fears about COVID-19. And some of it's like, think about like workplace policy phishing emails, especially as companies are undoubtedly going to go in and out of in office activities, right? Because some states are going to pull back. So immediately there's going to be a workplace policy email goes out, but hackers are already putting in workplace COVID-19 policy, scam emails in there. So your employees have to know about this stuff.
So, all right, let's zoom out then. So, you said 2019 was great. Fantastic. We came into 2020. You did some kind of more private peer groups to get an idea of what was going on. You found out that people were doing better than you thought. Awesome. Fantastic to hear. And so and then it's like, all right, well, from a sales, marketing, prospecting standpoint, your position is security first. Like that's the wedge that opens up the rest of the conversation, right? Yeah. So okay, so give me some ideas, right? Like obviously with, ID Agent solution, sending somebody a message saying, is this your password, might freak them out. But from a positioning, prospecting standpoint, what are the 1, 2, 3 different messaging angles, right? Like we talked about phishing and that kind of stuff, but like what have you seen as just a wildly successful angle to get somebody to communicate?
Yeah, so look, the messaging has to shift for 100%. Yeah, I mean, so if you had an MSP that's using ID Agent, one message I really want to get out there, because and this is partially our own fault. We sold ID Agent early on as this, it's a prospecting tool. It has a prospecting tool, but it's a security tool at the end of the, like, that is ultimately what it is, but it's an incredible sales tool. And a lot of MSPs do partner with ID Agent to use it as a sales tool. And sometimes that is what they use it for. And I do think that's a mistake to only use it that way. But you certainly, I would agree, you can't, and I've never been a proponent of just sending like random emails. They had to have some context around it. But right
Yeah, if
now,
I got
that's
a one-liner that said,
right.
your email is, I'd be like, huh, is this a spam thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
What your
So
message is.
I think you hold that more in your back pocket. But if you're getting conversations through other avenues as well, that report is still very powerful when you're having a conversation around security. And that's the beauty. That's what's made ID Agent successful, is the proof of showing credential exposures allows you to have a much broader conversation around every other security tool in the toolbox. That's what's great about it. It helps sell 2FA. It helps sell DNS filtering, whatever whatever it is. And so,
especially if the person's password that you give them on the list is the one they use for their bank account and their PayPal and their
yeah, yeah, no, I know, and
there.
yeah, and I can feel myself going onto a soapbox about this idea, because I know a lot of I see comments on Facebook a lot about dark web being snake oil or whatever that is, and I'm telling you, George, so many people are misinformed about credential exposures that are out there, and especially ones that are older, that people don't think are put the organization at risk. But I'm telling you, I have an example of an MSP who showed, it's just for whatever reason, you show the report to somebody, they skip over the active employees and go right to the employee who doesn't work there. And they say, that person hasn't worked here for 3 years. Why do I care? Well, you shut off their Active Directory, but do you know where they logged in? Did you have onboarding and offboarding policies? Do you know where they used their work email? This one example I heard in person, where the new admin person recognized the password on the report. The person hadn't been there in 3 years. It was the old admin manager. She's like, that's our bank account password. George, it had access, the password that was active on that bank, $1 million in cash. Now, they were lucky that no one did anything with it, but just my point, there's a lot of misconceptions about some of the data on these reports.
I heard one, this may fall into the same category, that the like the IT department, MSP, whoever's handing the new user their, hey, here's your list of temporary passwords, go and set a permanent one, and then they never
Oh yeah, they never do.
And now all of a sudden it's like password, and you're like, oh
yeah, and you can sometimes you see those on reports, because you'll see, and each report's unique, but you'll see a certain password through all their users, because it's a temporary password that they just give out as their temporary original, and so that gets exposed. And yeah, that's a problem, because there's always somebody that doesn't change it. But I'll get off the soapbox there, but going back into the sales and marketing messaging. So early on, one of the successful things we saw was people just reaching out with empathy and not selling, right? We had a MSP that reached out on LinkedIn to people in his network, and it was just like, hey, let me know if there's anything. If you need any help, let me know. It was very like just checking in, seeing how you're doing, nothing, not asking anything. And he ended up getting like 6 MRR deals out of it. I still got to hear the rest of the story on what those ultimately were, but it was just from like basic human connection and not asking for anything. Some of the other success stories we heard, and I've always been a big believer in this, there was so many small businesses that don't have MSPs, and maybe aren't even mature enough for MSPs yet, who knows? But we saw MSPs and communities offering their services at no cost, and I'm not suggesting people should go around giving pro bono to everybody, but in this time, what we saw was an MSP was doing this for a lot of people in their community. And I think the only thing they asked in return was really testimonials. And they got these incredible like live testimonials that they would post on like Facebook and LinkedIn. And so that was kind of their payment, right? They didn't get a cash payment, but they got all these incredible testimonials that they were posting. And George, I've always been a believer that if you do this for this one person in your community, and you didn't ask for anything, that person, I mean, who knows who they know? They might know 25 leading small businesses in that area, and you're going to be one of the first people they mention whenever that time is. So
it's almost like a quasi old school meets new school, right? Hey, like Brent just posted a message, a question here. He's like, are there just some people who just will never care that you've reached out, right? It's just like, to
Yeah.
them, it's another message. Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there like that. But your point is, if you get that community vibe going again, right? Almost like that old Chamber of Commerce concept, right? And now you're part of like the local, hey, these guys help me. If you need help, give them a call kind of thing. Like, and then all of a sudden that word of mouth really helps on the reverb side.
Yeah, and it goes both ways, and I would also encourage MSPs to strengthen their relationships with their vendors. ID Agent through our partner program, and really all of Kaseya, because Kaseya has adopted the partner program called it's over here, Powered Services. We do this thing called Goal Assist. It's one of the best programs you could possibly take advantage of. It doesn't cost any more money, where we'll get on webinars as subject matter experts. So right now, especially around like great topic, hot topics around security, let us come on. One, it's more fun hearing from more than one person. So like be interactive. I the other day I did one, and we found ways to weave each other in. So like I would find ways to weave that person into the conversation, or we can do it the whole way through. We don't even have to be from ID Agent or Rapid Fire Tools, whatever it is. We can be just an extension of your company, however you want to make it look. We do that.
Technologist that's trying to spread some love. I got you.
Yeah. But I think to Brent's thing, yeah, I reach out to people all the time and they don't respond. I do these personalized videos on LinkedIn. It's a great LinkedIn tip, by the way.
What tool do you use for the video?
LinkedIn. So we have to do it through the app, and they have to be a first degree connection. So instead of me reaching out to you, George, and just saying, hey, George, can't wait to see you on the road, I shoot a video right here on my phone and just send you the message. And I'm telling you, it's something about the human connection visually. People are like, oh shit. Like I had a guy respond from me, one of our Australian partners. He's like, dude, this is awesome. How did you, he's like, he didn't know how to do it through LinkedIn. And he's
I'm
like,
going to tell you, a lot of people who are watching this video don't realize that this exists.
Yeah. And he's like, he wrote me a couple weeks ago. He's like, dude, this is working so well for me. He's like, people are responding like crazy to my videos. And one of the things I did, just a little extra touch, like, I was reaching out to some partners in Brisbane, and I put on, the rugby jersey of somebody, that I'd gotten.
Yeah.
So, little touches, it means a lot to people, especially in a time like this. And you almost forget about the ones that don't respond, because it's the ones that respond that matter, in terms of building that relationship. And the other thing I would say, again, with building the vendor relationship, it's not that vendors play favorites, I would say, but everybody's human. Like, if you have an incredible relationship, somebody has a great relationship with me and they reach out with a problem, it's going to get done faster. It's just the reality.
It's true.
It
has nothing to do about favorites, is right.
Right.
I mean, it's just you have an ongoing conversation with this person versus somebody that you never talked to before.
Right. I mean, I had a guy actually from the Magic interview. He called me. We've never met. And he happened to be an ID Agent partner, but he left me this incredible voicemail. And he's like, you don't have to call me back. But I was like, this is such a nice voicemail that he like so complimentary. Then I called him. Me and him talked for like 10 minutes. And like now we've established some level of a relationship, right? And that's so important, I think, in these times.
That's a cool tip. The video, the personalized video, right? I mean,
yeah.
I know a lot of people use a lot of different like CRMs and stuff. We use HubSpot here at BVoIP, but that personalized, and some people have seen them before, but I tell you, I've very few and far between do you see the personalized video message.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be long, and nothing has to be perfect. You just be yourself. That's you don't have to be some awesome videographer or anything. No,
that's good advice.
Yeah.
So that's a great tip, by the way. So number one, the free services, kind of local community vibe. Number two, the LinkedIn video message. Number three, like actually pick up the phone and talk to whoever you are supposed to be talking to at your vendors, because otherwise you're missing out on probably a lot of things that could help. What else is working, right? I mean, I know you guys have a lot of content that you build on a regular basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Is it infographics that are working? Is it a particular campaign that seems to be sticky? I'm just curious.
So for, I'd have to ask Dana in terms of like the actual like marketing campaigns. What I can tell you is working really well for us is thought leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Just, putting together thing, one of the things I tried to identify early on, we did it through an event called Pivot to Grow, is, I just, we've heard from all of us, right? Everybody's heard from me and you a lot of times now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always trying to evolve and come up with new things to talk about that, so that if somebody's heard me before, hopefully they get something new. But I was like, you know what? Like, let's bring in sales and marketing experts from other industries that no one's heard from ever in this space, because sales and marketing are applicable across industry. It does,
So true.
so, you know,
Whether it's a lemonade stand or you're selling IT services, right? I mean,
right.
it's all the same to some degree.
Yeah. So look, that's a top of the funnel lead in terms of they didn't come to Pivot to Grow to hear an ID agent demo, but they got to see me speak. They got to hear Dan speak in one of the sessions, and our entire focus was on how are MSPs doing things in virtual events. And that would be maybe an area I'll talk about in a second. So it was even from the ID agent part where we had, and we were only one part of like 10 webinar series in this series, but all we did was talk about how MSPs are being successful in virtual environments. It wasn't an ID agent pitch fest, but again, you think about now our sales rep calling to that person, it's now a warmer lead, right? So it is top of the funnel, but I would encourage MSPs, MSPs, just to get yourself out there. We all need pipeline right now, everybody. And so even if it's top of the funnel, it's a good time to get those top of the funnel ones, because again, thought leadership is so important right now. That's what a lot of people want to hear. And then I'd say maybe the fourth one we can talk about, which is events, and video, right? Here's the thing, and I get this, like
Zoom fatigue, Teams
oh my
fatigue,
God,
WebEx
right.
fatigue, whatever it is, right?
Whatever it is, right?
It's all lumped
It's
together.
there. It's there. So be cognizant of that. Like, it's very common, and we probably will end up going an hour for this, but do a 30-minute one, do a 15-minute one, do something that's different. Try things out, try things out. Maybe don't ask as much of people's time. We saw early on a lot of people were doing like these big 2 or 3 day long full, and
The
that's
all
over.
week, every
Right.
day thing is kind of crushing.
Right. And so for us, we did like a 2-hour thing, and so you have different strategies around it, but get yourself out there. This is the thing. And it's very easy, I think, for an MSP to say to themselves, and I can understand this because I can feel this way sometimes too. It's like, oh God, everybody's doing video now though. Everybody, not just Zoom meetings, everybody's doing a video on LinkedIn or Facebook. But what you can't have happen is you cannot let somebody else be the voice for your community and your industry around your prospects. Like, you can't let them be the only voice just because other people are doing it. So it's important to put yourself out there. It's a very forgiving time to be on video in terms of you don't have to have like this big production. I've made this joke, and probably anybody's heard me say it. It's not like that funny. It's not funny really. It's just more of all of a sudden that somebody's dog could show up in a Zoom meeting, or a kid. And before that would be considered unprofessional. Now it's like part of the course, right? Oh, you've got your dog. Nice. But it also humanizes you, and it gives you something to talk about.
I love the ones that show up in like the Facebook and the Instagram feeds where it's like the professor and his kid in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like this whole viral thing.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I'm with you. It's okay that it's not perfect for sure. Brent comes back and says, kind of ties into the comment from Magic about knowing your target audience, make it to the prospect and personalize the message, right? I think that's, I've heard a couple people really get really good success with just mail campaigns, right? Sending out a small something, right, to people, or sending people access to something like a gift card or something that they can order online to send to their place. If anything, it's like, you send it out into the world, it comes back at some point, right? You got to try.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things, Matt, that is worth mentioning is because everyone is so connected and so kind of stuck right now, that it doesn't cost a lot of money other than individual time to actually do something. Like before, you're hearing from, hey, I got to drop 20, 30, 15, 5, 10 grand to try a marketing thing. Right now, it's all just time investment, right? There's not a lot of hard dollars out of pocket to try something, right?
Yeah. And just, you got to think creatively. I mean, we saw an MSP do a wine tasting event online.
How does that work? You
They
sent everybody a bottle?
they must have. I don't know all the details, but I mean, they had a wine person come on from the thing, and actually during one of our the pivot to grow, we had a or was this might have been actually on a happy hour we did for our own company. We had a Zoom farm come, like a farm zoomed in with us and showed us around their farm. You know, it was all for supporting the farm and support. So that's the other
Sure.
thing. You can pivot your message around supporting a local local company in your community. You know, the wineries, right? A winery and a brewery are the same. They're local companies. I mean, there's angles there. I think some of it's old school. Thank you cards. Like if you had a meeting with people, and obviously making sure you're putting yourself on video, but sending somebody a thank you note is something I've been a huge proponent of. It's not always the easiest thing to remember to do, but it goes a long way. And it's really funny if I think about this. When I got hired at Winvale, the original company Kevin owned, the guy I interviewed with, when he hired me, I came into his office and he had I had written him a thank you note, and he had it pinned on his wall. I was like, Mike, why do you have that pinned on your wall? He's like, because you're the only person I interviewed who sent me that.
Mm.
And if you think about it, if I hadn't sent that, and I don't know for sure, but if I hadn't sent that thank you note, I wouldn't be where I am with ID Agent today, because I wouldn't have gotten that, maybe potentially not that job, because of that one small gesture that took 2 minutes. You
Amazing.
know,
It's
so
like almost the little things count, right? But they kind of, bubble up to the top.
I mean, that's how I've built my career. You know, I've always been a consultative salesperson, I guess, if you want to call it that. I've never been about beating somebody over the head with the sales. I just, if you're passionate about what you have, if you have a good, I mean, obviously you want to have a good product, that's important too. But I think if you let people know that, if people see that you're genuine, I think that goes a long way.
So from if you were to, like obviously an MSP, usually they're looking at a specific geographic region, right? Like I'm here outside Philadelphia or you're in DC. What are the things that they could do between now and the end of the year? Like we talked about all this stuff, right? But as we start to come out of this a little bit, what are the things that we haven't mentioned so far for them to maybe try, that may warm up some conversation, right? Because I think part of the problem with a lot of the MSPs, depending on their maturity and size, right? Some people have a dedicated sales team. Some people have one sales. Some people, the owner is the tech and the salesperson, right? So it's all over the place. I feel like for the people that have at least one established salesperson, their big gripe is there's not enough things coming in for them to work in order to come out with results on the other side, right? So like coming into the rest of the year, what changes that other than the stuff that we already talked about?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be really strategic and think about this. One, I would say take some like legitimate time away from your computer and just sit with your team or yourself to start brainstorming this. And this is something vendors have to do, and myself. I mean, of course, I'm being asked the question around Kaseya and ID Agent. They're like, okay, well, what's after magic? You know, I mean, but that's the reality. That's how it is, right? I mean,
It's like you
that's
took a lot of effort to get to magic. Now what?
yeah. You know, I think you do have to be out there. You know, and it's easy when you're at some of these sales and marketing conferences. You know, of course, they're saying you should double down right now, and if you have the capability to do that, I think, you know, from a fund standpoint, if you're doing it strategically, I think it's absolutely right. Now, not everybody has that luxury, but you have to be out there in a lot of different capacities, because, and we can maybe talk through a couple of them, but right now, unfortunately, there are going to be casualties. There are going to be MSPs who don't make it. And that's why it's so important. So here's an example of one we haven't talked about, like your local chamber of commerce. Okay. Again, they are always thirsty for thought leadership. Whatever, you know, whatever your angle is, find that angle, get in with the chamber, get to speaking inside of that, because I guarantee you there'll be a company, most likely will be a company in that chamber who lost their MSP because their MSP went out of business. Okay, we're hearing it. We've heard it happen. I mean, there was another MSP recently, and they picked up a dental office because the dental office's MSP was no longer there. And then you have the flip side. You have companies who never thought they needed an MSP in the first place. wondering how they could ever do business moving forward without an MSP in place, right? I mean, so much has shifted, right? You've got gyms doing online programs now where can they, I don't know. I mean, can they survive without an MSP? I don't know.
Here's another angle. What if they had to downsize and the person that was doing technology is no
Yeah.
longer there?
Well, that is a great point. So the co-manage, and you and Rob probably talked about this a little bit. The co-manage opportunity is massive, massive, because now you have, like you said, maybe a mid-sized organization downsize 3 people in the IT department, and that person has no chance of handling all that stuff. It's an incredible opportunity for co-managed. I'm all in on the co-managed. I mean, Dan particularly talked about this a lot, but I think right now it's a massive opportunity for co-manage. And I think the really cool thing about co-manage, I think you can start getting a lot of referrals as well
I think MSPs, like the people who haven't really dabbled in co-manage for the little bit it's worth mentioning, like they almost get scared, right? Because generally there's this tension between the guy who's inside and like him worried or her worried that their job's on the line because you're now involved, right? And like there's always this uncomfortableness, but like once you get past that, there's actually a legitimate opportunity there.
Yeah, and I would say overcome that objection up front. Like that should be the first line you say. I'm not here to take your job. I'm here to empower you, because you be empathetic to you, especially if you know the issues that they're dealing with. You just point them out. Be like, I know, man, you're dead tired of doing this, this, and this. But guess what? These services that we can help you implement, you're not going to have to spend any more time on this, or this. So become their best friend. I mean, really, like that, and that's ultimately what you're doing. And the best part for an MSP, I mean, obviously, depending on the service, with co-managed, you're usually not doing anything on some level, right? So like, for sure, on dark web monitoring, it is one of the best deals you will ever make. And I cannot encourage anybody who's a partner of, whether it's us or a competitor, if you can sell this service upstream, it is the easiest. It's pure profit, because I'll give you an example. We have one of the largest law firms. It's a legacy customer. It's one of the largest law firms in the world. I speak to them once a year because they have internal IT, which means they're getting the alerts directly when they have credential exposures. So unless they have a question about the data, they don't need to talk to me. And we're running on 4 years now of that. And I've already seen it. We had an MSP, same thing. He's had a mid-sized organization he's had for 3 years, and he's not doing anything. Not anymore.
Just runs.
It just runs. Right? And I mentioned Goal Assist. I'm going to bring it back to Goal Assist. Yeah. I did the deal for him with the enterprise customer. He had a relationship with him, and he just said, "Can you jump on a call and help me close this?" And he wasn't even on the call. So that's part of Goal Assist. I mean, we don't get on prospecting calls. We'll help close deals.
Asking for a cut? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And so you guys offer a ton. Like, if you're a part, like, 'cause, not trying to. This is actually a helpful comment. So you guys have this umbrella of companies now, right? At Kaseya, right? If you were at Rapid Fire or Glue or Unitrends,
ID Agent.
ID Agent's one, obviously the core Kaseya products. I mean, you just got all this stuff going on. Spanning, like, it's just, I feel like I have to get like a whole catalog out. So if you're a customer utilizing any of those services, anything, could be for $1 a month. I don't know, if that exists. Right. You get access to this entire catalog of marketing assets, sales, email campaigns, infographics, like literally you're putting out content weekly, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels like daily. So for that individual business unit. So if you're part of the security bundle, like let's say ID Agent, you're going to have access to all the marketing materials. Now we have like live trainings going on and stuff like that. So you'll have access to all of that inside of Powered Services. Let's say then the next 2 months you add Rapid Fire Tools, then you're unlocking all of that in the same portal, right? And that's the beauty of it. Like as you grow with Kaseya, your marketing and sales portal is just growing inside there. So then you add, like you said, Unitrends or whatever the next thing is. And I mean, that's part of the messaging. So when ID Agent got acquired, one of the biggest reasons we got acquired was because of our partner program. I mean, we went well beyond what most vendors were doing. And they basically they've now dubbed it Kaseya Powered Services, and then rolled it out. And to Fred's credit, rolled it out at no additional cost. There's no additional cost to Powered Services.
Can't beat free. I
No,
mean, that's
no.
the price.
And it is really good stuff. I mean, talking tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, of materials that are just done for you. And Dan's team is doing such an incredible job. I can tell you on the ID agent side, for example, recently, we just launched a very specific PowerPoint deck that our partners can use, or we use as part of our webinars with them when we're participating. And now with like a click of a button, you can put your logo and it changes every one of the slides to your Pantone colors or something similar. So like that's the extent where we're going with our partners to make it just repeatable, right? And we share, and each person has a channel success manager whose job is not the same as an account manager, right? A channel success manager is not necessarily trying to upsell you. If you want to get, if there's things you want, they're there to talk to you about it. Their job is to make you successful on the products you currently have. Mm-hmm. And and that's what's worked best for us.
That's cool. I mean, so if somebody doesn't even realize that this exists and they are, still doing business, or maybe just signed up, or legacy customer, whatever, how do they get to this stash of marketing material?
Yeah, so I'll put the in the chat. It's poweredservices.kaseya.com. So I'll put it in the chat box. I don't know, does this chat go to everybody, or is it just
yep, just put it in there. But
yeah,
poweredservices.kaseya.com. I can spell that without
yeah.
I think.
And then there's also, again, if you didn't know the full stack of Kaseya products, it's itcomplete.com. But that's what I was saying. And so part of my job and Dan's job is, people have had whatever experience they've had with Kaseya 10 years ago. And sometimes that's the experience, and that's from, a different regime and from one single product. Kaseya is no longer a single product company, right? I often open up a lot of presentations saying, you're a Kaseya customer whether you know it or not, right? Because first of all, not to say who doesn't have IT glue, but it's a pretty big product. So
it is
by itself.
Well, IT glue,
rapid fire,
rapid fire, right?
Yeah. So I mean, between the two, and then you added ID agent in, and we had a huge velocity. So between those three, chances are you are a Kaseya customer. You just don't know it, and now you know. And you also have access to Powered Services, which again, not everybody knows, and that's part of my job, is to make sure that they do know.
Yeah. So I mean, think about this, guys. There is a stash out there for absolutely nothing, that you literally gets refreshed. I say weekly, could be daily, with the topic of the day and content and predefined documents and emails and basically presentations. You got nothing to lose. You go in there, maybe you make it your own, right? You take bits and pieces, maybe build something different. But hey, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people usually charge for. And I think that, sometimes it's easier to work backwards from material that's already in front of you, right, Matt? I mean,
yep.
Maybe you're not the most creative person out there, but I always like seeing something and then maybe imagining something just slightly different and working from that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I was just looking at some of the content. I mean, there's two items from the 24th.
Can you quickly just share your screen? Is there anything worth showing? I'm curious.
It says host has disabled my share screen.
Oh, my bad. Here you go. You're good.
I'll give like a very quick sneak preview. But so example, right here, it says new and popular, but new 24th, 23rd, 16th. This is one of our most popular things, decline of service agreement. So again, we're making this all available to you in the platform. Overcoming objections and sales training materials. So it's just all there. It's all there for the taking. So it's pretty cool.
No, hey, best advice, right? I mean, we're not selling anything here, right? This is just stuff to help you market and sell yourself. Closing thoughts, right? What's the best piece of advice you can give everybody watching this who's an IT service provider, MSP, maybe somebody who's doing co-manage, maybe somebody who's thinking about becoming an MSP? Because there's a lot of people who are maybe, coming out of a job that was permanent, now is no longer, right? They're trying to figure out what to do. What's your best advice for these guys going, for the foreseeable future?
That's always a tough question, I think. I mean, maybe it's more of like little tidbits, and I know we've kind of talked a lot about them, but again, this has forced us to all take a look at how we do business. So it's an opportunity, to be. I think you have to be forward thinking, put yourself out there, think outside of the box. You know, I just think it's so important to be the voice for your company and get out there. And again, I always come from more the vendor perspective, I'd say, and um, really leverage your vendors. And it's one of the really amazing things about the MSP space. And when I say leverage your vendors and leverage your peers, it's George. I mean, you've been part of it longer than I have, but I've never been part of anything like the MSP community in terms of like people willing to share best practices with competitors sometimes.
Yeah, I used to like coming into this thing, right? I feel like there's a lot of castle mentality out there, right?
Mhm.
Hey, your competitor bad, right? And like there was this moat and the drawbridge went up and like nobody wanted to talk to anyone and people were like this at conferences. And then people realize like there's actually a community, right? If you actually like take the goggles off and pay attention. And I think this whole event has really, if it hasn't done it, I don't know what will. I mean, there's a lot of help out there and resources and access that, frankly, you may not even get during regular times.
Mhm.
And I honestly feel like people who don't take advantage of it is just because they don't want to. I mean, not that they don't know that it's there.
Yeah, and you can also leverage multiple vendors for some of these thought leadership events, whether they're competitors or not. It doesn't matter. They're there to support you as a customer. So we've done plenty of events with. I mean, they don't compete with ID Agent, but they compete with Kaseya products, and we've done amazing. Actually, we've done in-person events with a customer with another competitor there. Um, it's yeah, it's a huge opportunity to leverage all of those resources. I had another thought. Of course, it just left my mind at the moment, but let's see if it comes back to me in here in a second. But it's just an incredible community. It's like I honestly, it's been the time of my life being part of this community. Um, yeah,
I feel like it's definitely stronger than it was even a couple years ago. And it doesn't just mean you have to go to an event to see it, right? I just think that there's a larger, willingness to collaborate, right? Even if you're geographically close. So I've seen a lot of good stuff from two different MSPs or IT services company working together to tackle
yeah,
a joint thing. So
yeah.
I mean,
And
obviously you have to draw the lines properly, but it can be
yeah.
done very easily.
Well, and maybe two little things that just came to me. One, and this kind of goes back to maybe some tips, but especially if you're a smaller MSP, get with a larger MSP in your area, one that doesn't really compete with you because they have certain thresholds of size organization they'll take on. Because guess what? They're hearing from new customers that they don't want to take on because it doesn't fit their profile. So be a
100%.
referral, and it's usually I think 1 month's MRR as part of the referral. Um, again, and because you know be out there, be active, understand what your competitors are doing. I had a competitor, well, so ID Agent launched Passly, which is 2FA password management single sign-on pretty recently. And I actually just spoke with a competitor this morning, and he was just reaching out, just kind of just he's like, look, I know we compete, so there's not much we can do in terms of synergies. He's like, truthfully, sometimes I get customers where they're not the right fit for us for whatever reason, and he's like, I'm just having this conversation, and I believe in that too because it makes me it makes me a better salesperson to say, okay, I've heard you for whatever reason you don't feel this is the right product. Check out this, and this company. Because I think if you're open and honest with people, it actually makes them want to do business with you, even at the end of the day. So, you're not hiding that hey, we're not the only ones out here that's doing it.
Takes a
So
bit of the grime and the slime away from the sales thing, right?
exactly.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Like, hey, I'm trying to help you, not just sell you something.
that's exactly right. I feel like all that stuff comes back to you always.
100%. Well, hey, Matt, you didn't think we would get to an hour,
I
and here we
didn't.
are.
Well,
Dang, it's not that hard.
yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, Tuesdays, Thursdays. I keep on forgetting what day of the week it is because they're all mushed together. But apparently it's Thursday. So this
Yep.
upcoming Tuesday we'll have our next session. But Matt, this is pretty good info. I mean, I love the stash of stuff that people didn't realize. I feel like it's a gift, right? Because you don't realize what you have until you open it up, and wow, there's the box. So
Yep.
appreciate you sharing that, and hopefully, I hope we see each other for the end of the year. If we don't, then more of these will work out fine.
No, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. And if you're not connected to me, if you're like one of the few people not connected to me on LinkedIn, I just put it in the panelist thing. Connect with me. I always got to self-promote my LinkedIn.
It's all
Sorry,
right,
George.
man. It's okay. So yeah, those I'll actually have those 3 links posted. With the videos that go out to all the various streams. So
Awesome.
howardservices.kaseya.com, itcomplete, idagent.com, and MJ Solomon on LinkedIn. Just pop that in. You'll see him right away. Thanks everybody for watching, and talk to you later.
Thanks, George.
See ya.